Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Cynthia Maxie Milton here with a follow-up for election 2023. I have back with me the Honorable Mike Epsy. He is the former U.S. Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, and the Honorable Mayor Harvey Johnson Jr. He was the first African-American mayor of the capital city of Jackson. They both know a thing or two about elections. Gentlemen, welcome back to Decision 2023.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you as well. Thank you.
So we had a great discussion. Before we were talking about this hotly contested governor's race. It was the big thing that everyone was talking about. It garnered national attention as candidate Presley, the Democrat, tried to unseat the incumbent Tate Reeves in a very, what is considered, strong red state. Many had high hopes that Presley, who was not your conventional Democrat, he's a Democrat who is pro-life, he is a Democrat who is supportive of the right to bear arms, and many thought maybe he will be the ticket to push over in order for the Democrats to cinch that governor's seat. It wasn't so. Tate Reeves was able to hold on to his seat in what he called a very, very, very sweet victory. So, gentlemen, are you surprised at how the numbers turned out?
Well, if you turn to me and look at me like you are, I'll say no. Honestly, the mayor and I spoke after our broadcast and outside, and we were discussing our mutual predictions, and I remember telling the mayor that I thought that it looked good for Mr. Presley, but I honestly thought when the die is cast and the smoke clears, he'll lose by a little bit. It'll be close. And I predicted 47-53 for Tate Reeves. Ended up being 51.6-47. So Governor Reeves did worse than I thought, and that's because of the unfavorability rating that we all knew that had been cast against him. So and it's bad for him, even though he won, looking at the future for him and the Republicans, because he got 51.6, but the Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hoseman, got 61.3. And so that's why I'm optimistic if you look at the trends over time for the Democrats. If you just give me a second to discuss what I see, okay. These oncoming trends. So when Ronald Reagan was president on through Haley Barbour, the Democrats used to control Mississippi. Every elected office statewide were Democrats. So then beginning the Haley Barbour tenure, when introduced modern electoral techniques, greater financing opportunities, and better politics, the Republicans started flipping, and now Mississippi now 2023 is pretty much all ruby red. But
and we had a certain portion of that throughout the South. It
absolutely.
wasn't just Mississippi.
But the Kentucky governor won re-election, so it's changing Mississippi. So my point is that things are changing, and I'm optimistic for the future. During our last telecast, I said Mississippi used to be 60-40. Now it's more like 47-53. So if you look at the Democratic side, I'm gonna say the upper echelon candidates, and I don't want to disparage any candidate, but when I say upper echelon, what I mean is candidates who are well financed, candidates who are well promoted, candidates who are good in retail politicking, like Brandon Presley. These are the upper echelon candidates, and he comes in and gets 47.1, but he's a white male, rural, Christian. His positions on guns and life are center-right, so he gets 47. So then if I could compare him to my race, if I'm allowed to, I'm the African-American male, suburban Christian, but my views on guns and choice center-left, and I got 47%. So what I'm saying is now it's up from 40, going toward 47, headed to 50. Because Willie Simmons, African-American, well-known, upper echelon candidate in a central Mississippi race for Transportation Commissioner, won by 55%, whereas 4 years ago, he just won by 51%. So he got 3 points in 4 years because he has capacity. He's known, he's well-financed, he's honest, people know him. Decison Stamps, who ran for the Central District Public Service Commission, lost 4 years ago against the same candidate, but he got 49.6, I believe, and this time he won by 50.4. So you can see the trend is going. Mr. Stamps, well known. They know him from 4 years ago, well liked. His financing could have been better, but he won, you know? So this is a harbinger of things to come. As Mississippi keeps changing, becomes less rural, more suburban, becomes younger and more diverse and smarter, and young students in Forest County at USM, in Starkville, in October, and Lee at Ole Miss, and all trending Democrat. That's why I see the thing going. I don't know how long it's going to take. 3 years, 5 years. It's going to depend on who the candidate will be. But in the future, there will be a Democratic governor from Mississippi.
That's an interesting analysis, because if you look at a number of races, there were many races where the numbers trended more towards where the Republicans got 58%, 59, 60%, and Democrats got 38, 39, which mirrors the makeup of our state, which is 60% Caucasian and 40% or so African American. So for those candidates who are not as well known or well financed, who want to run as Democrats, what are their options?
Well, I mean, I think that this race saw a lot of resources coming from outside get out to vote, not only from a Democratic Party, but their activist groups here in Mississippi, Black Voters Matters, the NAACP, One Vote. Was a lot of effort was made to increase the voter turnout, and whether we saw that or not in this race, clearly. In terms of the governor's race, it's an interesting numbers that had Reeves gotten the number of votes that he got now against Hood would have won. Hood actually got more votes in his race in 2019 than Reeves got in this race. So you know, it's one of those things where I agree with Mike that, you know, we're in a process of evolving into hopefully a blue state. When that's going to happen, I don't know. The state races, the district races, could be an indicator of that. It's interesting that actually more people voted in the Decison Stamps race than voted in the race for Simmons. I don't know exactly what that means, except Bailey spent a lot of time plastering Decison's face on television, which I guess was meant to try to dissuade or persuade his voters to vote against Decison, who was black. But it also indicated to me, to black voters, that here's a black man running for office, and I need to get out and vote for him. And so we'll just have to see what happens in the future. I think that we're going to have greater voter turnout. But, you know, one of the things, and I've been looking, and I can't find it, and I guess it's going to come out later, some analysis on what was the black voter turnout. I mean, exactly what was the percentage of black voter turnout. This 47% ceiling that we're hitting, obviously, if we can increase black voter turnout, then we can break that ceiling. And I think that that's going to be key, and that's where we're going to have to spend a lot of time. A lot of time and effort was spent this time out. But that's where I believe we can move the needle by increasing not only black voter registration, but black voter turnout to get past that 47% and get to that 50% plus one that Mike was talking about.
I've done a little research on turnout. So this morning, and the turnout in this governor's race, well, the turnout in all the statewide elections were like 10% lower than 4 years ago across the state. In Hines County, there was an 8,000 vote reduction in black voters. Hines County, I'm equating to black voters. So it was 8,000. Hines County voted 8,000 fewer votes than 4 years ago. So some of that could be attributable to the debacle with the Hines County Election Commission.
I want you to hold that thought because we want to get into that. So we're going to take a break. But some voters came out and there was no ballot for them to vote. We'll talk about that and whether or not our gentlemen think that had implications for the outcome of this past election. Stay tuned. We have more of Decision 2023 coming up.
Are you dreaming of becoming an entrepreneur, but you're not sure where or how to start? At Entrepreneurs Academy 101, our online program will guide you step by step on how to start and grow your own business. We offer courses such as how to write a business plan, how to create a budget, and so much more. Our online training program is designed for you to learn at your own pace, and there's no set order to complete this program. Because our academy is online, you have the choice to learn with a group, with friends, or individually. Upon completion of the entire curriculum, you will receive a certificate of achievement to acknowledge that you have completed the training needed to become a successful entrepreneur. So enroll today to design the life that you love. Contact your entrepreneur coach, Brenda Myers, at 601-672-0695 or visit our website at www.entrepreneursacademy101.com for more information.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee. To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
You're watching Decision 2023 on the We Believe Network. I'm Dr. Cynthia Maxie Milton, your moderator. I have with me former U.S. Congressman and the first African-American U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Mr. Mike Epsy from Yazoo. Yes. Also have with me another gentleman who knows a thing or two about elections, and that is Mr. Harvey Johnson, Jr., who was the first African-American mayor of Mississippi's capital city of Jackson. And we're talking about the results in this past election. And people came out, some people came out in heavy numbers in some places. There were lines out the door, and some waited only to find out there were no ballots. And at least several locations in Hinds County, which is arguably one of the most Democratic counties, one of the largest the largest county in the state, and people came out to vote with no, in one place, I heard an interview with a gentleman, he came out as early as 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And there were no ballots. Hinds County Administrator Kenneth Wayne Jones, thank you, I appreciate that. Just said they had worked very hard to make sure that they had a safe, smooth running election, and it was just very disheartening to see the Hinds County Commission, I'm just going to say it, dropped the ball in that area, and people came out to vote and there were no ballots, and what he said was perhaps one of the most critical elections in Mississippi's history. Gentlemen, do you think that had an impact? What are your thoughts?
When you say they dropped the ball, you're being very polite. Hinds County is the base for Democrat and statewide elections in Mississippi. You have to have Hinds County. Now, if it had been perfect, with no issues with the ballot problem, I'm not saying that's enough for Mr. Presley to have declared a victory, but it certainly hurt him. No doubt, because on research, there were 9 precincts, high voter precincts within Hinds County, where people had to wait 4 hours for ballots to be printed.
And we know some of those people did not come back. And some folks went home particularly towards the evening. 2 and 3 lawsuits filed, so the polls will remain open and not be closed. And so that is, a lot of people have criticized this as some sort of implications of some racial actions. I would say no. I know that's not true, because in my law practice, I have a part to play in representing the Board of Supervisors, and I'm there often in sessions where the election commission is being criticized by the Board of Supervisors for not doing something or not knowing something. So they've admitted that they failed, because the law suggests
that in an election like this, you're supposed to look at your precincts and count the registered voters on the roll.
That's what you would think.
And
You would
you're
have
supposed to have-
at least one ballot for every registered
The
voter.
the law requires 60%. You got to have 6% of the ballots when the polls open, and therefore those oncoming, and they didn't. By 11 o'clock, the ballots were spent. So that's awful. So you have that. I don't know what impact that had on Preston, but certainly it had some deleterious impact. And you have Gwendolyn Gray, the independent black woman who was on the ballot. She got 1.4% of the vote. She dropped out. But it was too late to keep her name off the ballot, so that hurt Presley as well. So we sitting here, I'm saying, Ms. Presley got 47.1. You had a ballot debacle, and you had a Gwendolyn Gray debacle. I'm not saying that combined it was enough for him to win, but he could have been 48.5, and that would have broken that 47% ceiling. So I think that was unusual. So that's why I say I'm optimistic for the future for Democrats in statewide politics.
But I still think even if it's 60%, it's the law. But you think it's just as due diligence. It's better for us to have them and not need them. Why not have one?
They admit they made errors. They admit
And I think it wasn't simply a mathematical problem, and that's the issue. And I think that's what's being missed. Well, we have what are called split precincts. So you may have 2 districts, maybe 3. I've heard of maybe 3 or 4 districts in one precinct. So if I'm in one district, I'll get a different ballot than you in another district. And so they miscalculated that. The split precincts really was the driving force behind this error, because there are a number of split precincts because of the redistricting that occurred back in, I guess, 2022, to make sure that there were equal votes and all that kind of stuff around in various districts. So these split precincts, they miscalculated. There's a ballot, split precinct ballot, and then a regular ballot, and for some reason those ballots were confused. But the larger implication is what it does for encouraging voter turnout in the future. If people went to the polls on this election and couldn't get a ballot, or they had to stand in line for 3 hours, or they had to go to work and they went home, or had to go pick up the baby from the babysitter, and this process to them was just unfriendly, and so getting them back may be a problem. So I'm more concerned. I granted the election commission dropped the ball. They didn't do what was supposed to be done, but what implications does that have for the future and trying to encourage voters to come back, especially with the 2024 election coming up?
I agree with you. There were split precincts. That was a problem, but there are split precincts in every election in every county in Mississippi. In Madison County, where I vote and live, Carl Banks won by 55% African-American supervisor, whereas 4 years ago, he just won by 6 votes. So this time he won by 1,500 votes, but they're split precincts. But the election commission in Madison County, they perform well. These are they run for this office. They run. Their names are on the ballot as well. In Hines County, I just don't know why this happened. They say they weren't trained. The Secretary of State didn't do XYZ, but the Secretary of State trains everybody, Everybody could be trained by the Secretary of State. So I just think it was incompetence. I hope it was just only a one-time thing. It hurt Brandon Presley. It hurt him. It hurt the fortunes of the Democratic Party in the future.
I can't imagine as a candidate, you spent all this money, you work like an animal, and then to hear that someone just didn't have the ballots available for you.
When I ran in 2018, I called Stacey Abrams, as I mentioned the last time we were here, because we knew we had a voter integrity problem. I saw it as sort of a racial deal, You always suppress the black vote. I was told people think. And so she helped to fund a voter integrity project for us. And I had a separate nonprofit voter integrity entity with about 12 lawyers ready from the time the polls open, from the time the polls close, surveying all the precincts, asking for issues, fixing issues, ready to file whatever. And so we didn't have those kind of problems. So even if it had been a problem with the Election Commission, which it was, Mr. Presley could have had on his own an effort already ready and in place to assist the resolution of the problems. And I don't think it did. That money has to go for that.
So you all, I remember when you ran for office, you were young, very young, and just a leader at an early age. Do you all see those kind of leaders coming up, like you all were? Those groundbreaking leaders, not only in the party, just in the state in general, to move forward. What do you think the future of politics is in Mississippi?
I'm optimistic. I think the Democratic Party in our state is in its reformation stage. It's being reinvigorated. It's coming back. They have new leaders. They're knowledgeable about what they have to do. They know what the odds are right now, but they have a timetable, and they know what they have to do to get to the timetable. You can't win an election in a year. You have to prepare for it 5 years before. You have to. You got to get the voter rolls. You got to knock on the doors when there is no election, and register these voters and make sure if they're purged that you can put them back on. I think the party as it stands now is building back. It's got a poor record, but it's got a strong bench. I'm optimistic because now I mentor in just my off-duty life some candidates for the future. And so far they're all African American. They're all Democrat. They're all well-educated. They're all young, 23, 25, 19. And we talk about what could happen in the future. And most of them have gone to schools out of state. Harvard, Yale, and I'm not saying you have to go to those schools, but they look at it from a 30,000 foot, what do I have to do to be ready in 5 years or 6 years to run for governor, lieutenant governor, senator? And where am I going to get my money from? And they're already cultivating those donors. So they're coming. It's no doubt. I'm so optimistic about the trends from 60-40 to now 53, 50, 47, 53, a strong bench, more education, demographics changing in Mississippi, less rural, more urban, more suburban, more education, more college students, more people believing overturning Roe v. Wade was a mistake. And all of those are Democratic trends nationally, and Mississippi is not immune to Democratic trends. I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic as well, and as I said before, I think it's good to have people on the bench, young folk who are waiting to hit the floor. We're in a different generation than when Mike and I came up, and so the politics are going to be played different. They already played different. Technology is a very strong player, strong stage for political discourse and dealing with issues. And so this generation, what are you talking about, X or Generation Z, millenniums or now old folk, I guess we're in the Z and X, are going to have to sit at the knee of Black Mike to see what it takes to engage in retail politics. Because that's what he's talking about, retail, knocking on doors, shaking hands, kissing babies. Those are the kinds of things that create an interpersonal relationship with voters. You can't do that on TikTok. You can't do it on Instagram. And so that kind of training, if you will, is going to be important. The other side of it is that we're going to have to get some people to vote for those folks, and that's the problem. We're going to have to get their peers to get involved and get interested in politics from the voting perspective, not just from running for office. Because without the voters out there, obviously those people who are sitting on the bench and who are running, they're not going to be able to get across the goal line. So some kind of education, continuing education on civics. I mean, civics not even taught in schools anymore. So I mean, young people don't know what government is, what government does, but what's in it for them to be actively involved in politics. So we got a long way to go, in my estimation, to make sure that we do the kinds of things that need to be done to get not only people engaged to run, young people engaged to run for office, but also get young people engaged in the political process so that they'll know the importance of voting, they'll know the benefits of voting, they'll get out and vote, they know what government does for them, what government can do for them, and how important it is for them to have a say-so in who actually governs.
We talk about young black women when we were here last time, and still, I think there's an issue there, and I think it's attributable to what the mayor just said. They don't believe that they'll benefit personally by taking their time to go and vote. And I'm being very general, and I'm not indicting young black women totally, but I'm just saying there's a troubling trend growing where the young and younger black women below 25 are not engaging in the electoral process by voting because they don't believe it's meaningful to them. And I've read focus groups on this, and that's something who's ever on the bench, maybe it would have to be a black woman, to engage her peers, to tell them in real time what it means to them. The other thing we have to do is maybe there should be a black woman from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. If you look at where this vote is coming from, not Mississippi, where Republican stronghold is, it absolutely the 3 counties of the Mississippi Gulf Coast. No doubt about it. That's the wall. Democrats cannot break through that wall. And so it may have to be someone, a Democrat, well-known, trusted, people knowing from that part of the state. Because if you look at what black votes are shifting, they're leaving the Delta. And again, I'm being very general. They're leaving the Delta seeking employment opportunities elsewhere. And that's in Madison, it's in Rankin, it's DeSoto with FedEx. It's around these college towns. That's where they're moving from the Mississippi Delta, and that's where they're going, because now they're being tracked. And they're also leaving Hans County, unfortunately, and they're going to suburbs. Hans County population's being decreased, and so the voter impact is being felt as well. But they're not leaving Mississippi. They're going to different places in Mississippi. As I said before, Forest County, Lee, Tibuhaar, Panola, DeSoto, in the countries of the casinos down on the Gulf Coast, Madison, Rankin, that's where they're going. And they're black, and they're voting. So we have to track them. So whoever runs in the next 5-6 years should be well-financed. And again, I think the mayor both agree it doesn't matter if they're black or white. If they're a Democrat, the ceiling is 47. So it may not matter if it's a black person. If he or she is well-financed, perhaps on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, to break through that wall, because people know you and trust you if you live there and you've grown up among them, you get a buy. So maybe that's where it has to come from. But well-financed early, that's the formula.
I think what we see is that, public service is a lot of work. And it's a lot of research. It's not something that, you need to enter into haphazardly. But I think the reward is certainly worth it. We're watching Decison 2023 here on the We Believe Digital Network. We have Mike Epsy and Harvey Johnson Jr. with us. Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk to these gentlemen about if you're one of those young people and you want a career in public service, how do you get mentored? And I'd like to ask the gentlemen, do they see more diversity in our politics or less? We have more of that coming back.
Hey, have you heard about the Accountable Card? It's more than a card. It's a complete mobile banking service that's accountable to all of us. You'll get a no credit check debit card good anywhere Visa is accepted to make purchases, deposits, even get or transfer cash with an FDIC insured bank account managed from our smartphone app. There's even a pre-approved no interest line of credit. if you need emergency cash. So why go to the bank when you can have ours in your pocket? Get accountable. Just download our app today.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
You're watching the results of the election of Decison 2023 with Mike Epsy and Harvey Johnson Jr. And you talked about the fact that you are looking to help develop young people who want a career in politics. So if there is a person out there who thinks they want a career in public service, how can they be mentored? How can they get involved?
Because I'm not the only one. Okay. I'm sure as many will come to the former Mayor Jackson, so.
And what advice do you have?
Are you still in 100 Black Men?
Yes.
So yes, 100 Black Men is the organization mentoring young, mostly minority young men.
I'll be mentoring this afternoon.
Yeah. So I'm not the only one, but I have probably 4 or 5 coming to me regularly, and we just have coffee in the office and talk about politics. And they're there, of course, out of self-interest because they all want to run. And I'm saying, watch this pitfall, watch that pitfall. Here's what you should know. Here's how you should prepare. If you're in college, you ought to consider taking these courses. But if you get a PhD in political science, doesn't mean you're going to win an office. So we talk about those kind of things every day. How much does it cost? Well, Brandon Preston raised about
$13 million.
$13 million. In 2018, I raised $12 million. In 2020, I raised $17 million. That money doesn't come from Mississippi. It comes from other places, New York, particularly Manhattan and Brooklyn. It comes from California, particularly San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Silicon Valley. It comes from Houston, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and you have to travel to go there. You have to travel because, as the mayor said, the donors, like the voters, must see you, shake your hand, look in your eyes, hear your platform, ask you questions. It takes a lot of time. But if you're youthful, you have energy, and you're maybe not full-time employed, then you might be able to do it. So this is what I tell them when they talk to me.
Ray Johnson, what's your advice?
Well, I think time is the key there. We're, and I get back again to the generation that we're talking about, and I certainly don't want to generalize, but the speed is the benchmark of this generation. Everything is instant information. You can go on the internet and get information like this. You can communicate instantaneously across the world. Everything is done right now, and so the tendency is to think that that's going to be the case with the future, your future endeavors. Time has to be spent to prepare for those things that you're going to engage in the future. They're not going to happen overnight. Success is a process. It's not an event. It's not something that you can do. You can wake up tomorrow and say, this is what I want to do. And I think that's key. Training, having the right kind of academic background, also the right kind of social background, interacting with people in different social venues, even volunteer work, community service. All of that combines to make for a good candidate, because your sphere of influence is very important. And it's not just your next door neighbor or the person at your church. It's a lot of folk in the community. And so, I served on numerous boards before I became mayor, and had therefore had new people across the community, not only in the black community and white community, but different religious communities as well. So that's extremely important. I can't talk enough though about trying to educate young voters, young people, on the importance of voting, of making sure that they make a difference. And and to some extent, there are high expectations, and especially in the black community of government. And because, you got to remember, some of these, Mike was the first, I was the first, so the expectations are very high to make changes right now. This is what I elected you for. I want you to make sure that you fix the potholes, or I get my check on time, or whatever the issue happens to be. And it takes some time to do that and to educate people of how government really works and what the expectations should be. When I first got elected to office, Maynard Jackson, who was the mayor of Atlanta, first African-American mayor of Atlanta, came to my inauguration. He said to me, look, you're going to have high expectations in the black community and high anxiety in the white community. And so for a black elected official, that's the balance that you're going to have to make, particularly here in Mississippi, to get to that 50% or 51%, to try to balance these expectations with anxiety, and to somehow convince people in the black community that perhaps expectations need to be lowered just a little bit. And it's going to take time to make sure that the things that need to be done that haven't been done will be done in the future.
Okay, we only have about a minute and a half left, so I'm gonna skip the question on diversity. I want to ask each of you. We know politics can be a challenging journey, but and you all were ceiling breakers, so to speak. Do you think it was worth it, or what was most rewarding about it for you?
For me, no doubt about it. I'd never run for office in my life until I won a congressional race in 1986, and I represented the Mississippi Delta for 6 years. I won 4 elections, and I resigned and become a cabinet secretary, first African American ever, and currently first. It's rewarding when you can help a person, like a constituent. If you're in the Congress, you have constituent service, you help people with their needs, Social Security, veterans, whatever it is, you help them on a one-on-one micro basis. And when you're a cabinet secretary, you help the most powerful country in the world on a macro basis. And it's right there. And you have the knowledge, you have the ability most of the time. And you have support from people to help you. So it's a great feeling. It's a worthy calling. It's very difficult, particularly when you're a candidate. It's Congress and a Senate candidate. I raised $17 million, but the National Democratic Senate campaign gave me at most $200,000. The Democratic governors gave Brandon Presley $4 million, so I had to do it alone, by phone call, by phone call, by phone call every day for a year. Probably contributes to the quality of my voice today. So it's very difficult, but I was not able to win that. But so I look back on what I did before, and it's rewarding.
Mayor Johnson?
No question, it's rewarding. Being the mayor of a city is probably one of the best jobs you can have. I mean, every day you're making decisions that are going to help people lives. Tip O'Neill said, all politics are local, and there's no question about it. You're where the rubber meets the road. You also have an opportunity, or when you make the decision, to deal with those people who are not happy with those decisions. And it's the mayor at the local level. You have that kind of interaction more than any other office. But I found it rewarding because at the end of the day, you could look back at what happened that day and said, okay, well, I did this, and that's important. And of course, there are material things. There are convention centers or roadways or whatever. You can look at housing. You can look at, but just interacting with individuals, because to me, I grew up in a time where government interceded in the lives of black folk to make things better. that's back in the 60s with the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act and National Guard standing in the doors of schools to make sure that
make
there was
things more equitable.
Right, and so I'm a fan of that, and that really I became infatuated with the prospect of government making things better for people, and so I'm pleased that I was able to do that for 12 years. As mayor of the city of Jackson, and it was rewarding. In terms of whether it was worth it, I don't know. You have to ask my wife whether it was worth it or not.
Because when a person runs for office or serves in office, their whole family serves. It's like the military.
Yes.
It's not just them. You've been watching Decision 2023 here on the We Believe Network. I'm Dr. Cynthia Maxie Milton. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone.